Hello, my name is Heidi Maria Norman from Norway, and you are listening to my podcast, Love, Joy and Heartset. And I am interviewing people all around the world about love, joy, heartset and spirituality. And today I am so honored to have Ben with me. So Ben, can you please introduce
Hi.
yourself?
Yes, my name's Ben Curtis. I am, I guess, originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee, but have lived in New York City for the last 20 years. And now I'm kind of nomadic, but what I quote unquote do for a living, what I'm really passionate about is I'm a coach. I'm a life coach. I'm a vulnerability and courage coach. I'm a coach to empower humans to really own their emotions and learn how to be self-expressed and have tools for loving themselves and healing and growing and really going after their dreams. Because I really believe in most of us, it is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And I'm also, as part of the journey of doing what I love, I'm a musician. I have a band called Dirty May, which is an indie New Orleans folk band with my wife, Cassie Fireman. And that's all over the internet. And I'm also an actor on film and TV and voiceovers. So I love interviews because I love to get to know people and just to have conversations. And I love connecting. And you're someone I had just such a privilege to connect with, an honor to connect with in quite a powerful coaching program. So I'm just excited to be a part of this manifestation of your work and your voice to the world.
It's so nice to have you here, and thank you so much for your introduction. You were talking about that you are really interesting in helping people, and I know that you are helping men, especially men that is sensitive, and to get more in touch with their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I do. Thank you for highlighting that. I do focus on men because I really understand the gender constructs and what we're dealing with today. And I guess it's sort of it's not even about, there's no sexual preference or identity around it other than whatever people who identify as male, and who kind of pass as male and who have been grown up in this patriarchy also deal with, I feel like have less permission to really express their emotions, and have been taught. We've all had this sort of toxic masculinity taught to us, these identities that like a real man or a strong person or anyone, doesn't really share how they're really feeling or show their weakness, or the vulnerability is a sign of weakness. That to be successful, you just have to be strong and push through. So these masculine energies that don't allow for any feminine energy, like any humanity, any flow. And so guys, I've noticed men, and also being a man, have dealt with that. And I've also noticed men really, the suicide rate for men being so high because of this pressure. And it's not even real pressure. And everyone feels it. But I've just noticed men seem to, from my experience, just not really know how to do that as naturally. Like even you see two young kids holding hands on the street. If they're two girls, most people think about it, but if they're two boys, well, especially in my country, it's seen as something's wrong. And if they were adults at different ages, we would judge them differently. So there's still some portrayal of what men should be, and society's even set up that way here. Like men are still paid more because they're expected to step up more, and women would gladly take on more responsibility and more pay, you know? So it's unequal anyway. And so men are taking on all this pressure, and I feel like I'm speaking in generalizations, but silently suffering more. So women have permission in society more to tell each other how they're feeling and talk about feelings. And, you know, that's it. Talk shows are geared towards women for that reason, but there haven't been space for men just to say like, I'm not okay, or I need help, and that could be something courageous. So that's really what I've focused on, just helping men like be in touch with that, and also realize that struggling as a sensitive man, like really, really sensitive growing up, empathic, just take on everyone else's energy, and just I feel everything, you know. I realized that was rare, and it felt like a quote unquote handicap growing up. I don't love that word, but it felt like it felt like something, I'll tell you, well, let me change it. It felt like something was wrong with me. And I've finally understood that maybe that was actually a gift I was given, because I'm seeing how I can help other people. And I've definitely helped women and non-binary, you know, non-gender conforming humans with all kinds of things. But I love especially helping men, because I just want them to know that all people it's okay to ask for help, or to show vulnerability, you know, to open your heart, to allow other people in. As scary as it is, there's actually a stronger payoff, but we just don't know, because most of us aren't taught any better. So I'm trying to get the word out, you know, because I think everyone feels that. You just need permission sometimes to share it.
I love that. I love that you are helping men get more in touch with their emotions and what they feel, and that it's okay to be vulnerable and to show emotions. Yes, and it is for women as well that we are saying that, yeah, we are okay. If people are asking if how are you, then you say fine, but inside you can scream, no, I'm not fine. And when I started to say that I'm not fine, then people are like, oh. But it's important to say how we are feeling, because then you can get some help with it.
Yeah. It's really hard to get help if no one knows. And you'll hear in a lot of, at least heteronormative relationships, or probably any relationship, I hear this. There's always the complaint of it used to be just men saying, well, I'm not a mind reader to their wives, and now it's everyone saying that to each other. You know, we're not mind readers in relationships, and we all have different love languages and different ways of operating, and it's, you know, there's no way to, and sometimes people do these wild things, sort of cries for help, when it's so much easier to ask for help. But sometimes maybe it's not, because we've had more practice, you know, not asking. We've had more practice trying to do it ourselves, or maybe we've been in a situation at home growing up, or in an environment sometime in our life where we weren't safe and we couldn't rely on other people to protect us, and we had to do it ourselves, and now nothing feels safe, you know. So it's all, I think, about learning to just practice coming from love, and practice seeing what you would need to feel safe. And go from there. And if it's to ask for help, that, well, now it's 2021, chances are you could ask for help and someone, you know, is not going to judge you. In fact, you may even be helping them, because helping someone else feels really good. So if you ask for help, you also are of service to another person and allow them to help you, which in turn helps them.
Yes.
And that's why things like the 12-step programs and recovery work so well, because it's all built on the healing power of helping each other in community.
Yes. And when you are talking about the help and helping each other, it's like when you step, if you are, because when you are an empath, it is like you are always the one that is giving and helping and wanting to help other people. So when you step back a little bit and say that I need some help, then you get the other persons that is around you to get the chance to also learn how to help.
That's so true. That's beautiful. And something else that just resonated from that is, I recently lost a family member. I lost my father, and I talk about that because I think it's important to talk about as we're saying this, but also B, because he really taught me this way. He was a minister. He was I think a healer in that way. He was a speaker, a writer, a poet, an artist, a painter. He really took on healing, which is extraordinary for a man in the South, like who grew up in the 1940s in Tennessee, to even be open to that work. And my point was that people, so everyone wants to ask for help, especially in a time of grief. People want to know how to help. And so I've been talking about that this week, like what does that mean, and being of service and things like that, and speaking your truth and the importance of that. And that, as someone who's been on both sides of feeling helpless, like I want to help someone who's grieving or going through something and knowing there's nothing I can really do, or being on the receiving end of that, going through that, knowing there's not a whole lot I can do, anyone can. But when someone says, hey, I don't know what to say, like I wish I could help, sometimes I don't know, it's a beautiful place to start. Because if that's your truth, then you can say that, and that resonates a lot more than saying something fake that you think people want to hear. But they know, people know in their heart if you mean what you're saying or not. So if you just say it, often it's almost like a breath of fresh air. Like, for example, one more thing. Here's a funny thing. Like, I was really tired last night. We were having dinner with my mom. It was my wife's last night in town. And she's really been a rock in there for me during this time. And she's going to celebrate life of our soon-to-be nephew. So in times of loss, there's always life. Life is given, life's taken away. And we were having dinner last night. But we had been there for a while now, and after dinner was well over, we were sitting there talking. I was getting uncomfortable. I was starting to stand up and pace around, and I went for a walk, and finally I sat back down, and I was thinking, like, gosh, I hope we can go soon. And we were both tired, and I finally said, I'm uncomfortable. If we're staying, can we move in another room? And my mom at that point just said, well, I was kind of hoping y'all would leave. And I was we all laughed because, you might be like, how rude. But I was so grateful that my mom said the truth, because I was actually like, my wife and I were actually both ready to leave, and we were both tired. It turns out we were all being polite. Yeah. And no one was we were enjoying being together, but we were also all tired. So once someone finally spoke their truth, it gave us permission, and we just all left. We were like, oh, great. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, it's good to see you, And that was it. Like, no harm, no foul. So that's just another, I think, that used to embarrass me so much growing up. My mom would just blurt out things, but I realized she just speaks her truth, Yes. And that's actually a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. And first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I understand. I appreciate it.
And the second thing is that when you are grieving, then it's I lost my father for now I have to see how many years. It is 7 years ago. Tomorrow I we put him to the grave. So
Wow.
yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that this is coming up then. That you and I
No,
are speaking right now.
no.
Wow.
So I know about how it is to don't know what to say in the right situation, but sometimes it is enough to just be in the same room and don't say anything,
Yeah.
because just be there and to
Yeah.
be the support that the other person needs.
Yeah.
If they want to cry, then cry. If they want to laugh, laugh. And that every emotion is allowed.
Yeah.
And also to be angry and to be screaming, because it's so many emotion that is coming up when you are grieving.
Yeah.
And you never know how long it will take. So when we are grieving, we have to take the time that we need to grieve.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's important to lean in and but actually showing up to things. And thank you for sharing about your experience too. I think losing a parent is a lot of people's one of their greatest fears, I hear.
Yes.
Public speaking the first, fear of death the second, fear of their parents dying the third, sometimes. And yeah, it's a rite of passage. Like we all die at some point. Hopefully, our parents, or hopefully we outlive our parents. Sometimes we hope that, no parent wants to also bury their child. But the thing is, the point is, it's just a part of life, and we get to be part of it and learn from it. And I think in Western society, in our culture, what I've learned and seen, and I've also, so my father was a Christian minister, but he's Episcopalian and very open-minded and liberal, and he was gay, and he believed in just really liberal, like the Bible is as metaphors to learn from, but not to persecute others by. And he put me in a school where I got to learn from all kinds of religions in the South, and he encouraged me to go to synagogue with my Jewish friends, and I saw how kind of well they handled death, that they mourned more, and there was more permission in their services to mourn, and they would sit Shiva for 7 days to mourn, and people bring you food and sit with you, and the mourning process is very important. And then in a lot of tribal and indigenous cultures, there's mourners, there's shakers, there's movers, there's wailers, there's people who help you move the spirit and honor that and honor death, and yet we hide from it. And in our culture, people do everything they can to try to change their appearances to look younger and not to age. And yet it's a beautiful process and a process of life that is full of wonder and lessons. So I think instead of always making it wrong, or the dark parts of it wrong, that we can actually learn from it and learn that even grief can be a beautiful expression, as painful as it is, that it's a powerful emotion that ultimately has a healing quality or spiritual aspect, even if it doesn't feel that way at first.
No. And the grief, it opens our heart, because it's so much that is opening in us when we are letting ourselves grieve and letting ourselves feel the emotion that is necessary in that second.
Yeah, it's important to feel them. That's why people who stuff these feelings down their whole lives, sometimes it can turn into disease. I think it can manifest in the body, can come out other ways. It's going to come out somewhere, some way, and probably not in a healthy way. So if you're able to talk about it and start to work with it or acknowledge it, at least then you can actually move it and it comes out much quicker. And so part of it is just about being with it.
Yes. And especially we that the empaths like us, we are taking the others' emotions also inside of us. And so that's really important to get their emotions out and look also about what is mine and what is someone else.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And that probably that takes and that definitely takes time. Like, what is mine, what's someone else's, to know what emotions belong to you, what might you be absorbing. And that happens in relationships a lot.
Yes.
Like, we kind of think of ourselves, rather than two people, as sort of one organism now, and somehow the whole thing needs to work perfectly how we think it should. So we all need to be thinking and feeling the same thing, and it doesn't work that way.
No.
Sometimes, right? And often our partners can trigger things in us. Like, relationships are reflections of ourselves and mirrors, and so it's also an opportunity to work on it. But it takes patience and curiosity, I think.
Yes, it's like Gabby Bernstein says that relationships is the greatest way to a spiritual work, because everything comes up in front of you like a mirror.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
that's true. It's like I've also heard it said, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire almost.
Yeah.
It just makes it bigger what's already there.
Yeah. So it's important also to understand that when it's two persons in a relationships, then it's two persons' energy that is meeting each other, and that you can feel when you are an empath, you can feel what the other person is feeling. And so it's important also to take a little step for yourself to feel, is this mine, or is this the other person's?
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yes. Can you tell me, you told me a little bit about that you it was hard for you in the beginning, that you were a sensitive boy. Can you tell me a little bit more about your childhood, how you experience it to be an empath?
Yeah, sure. Just one second. So yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think as children we're not fully self-aware, but I did grow up in a family where my father was a preacher, so I would watch him perform, so to speak, up on the pulpit almost every day, talking and preaching. And but he cared about people, so I did learn about self-expression that way, and that he was very emotional and sensitive, and he would talk about it, and he wouldn't be afraid to be emotional in front of people, and people were very moved by that. So I saw that as okay and kind of safe. My mom was emotional. Both my parents were in therapy, and I feel like we were always processing things at dinner. I remember my older sister saying, God, it's like we're always processing things in this family. So it's kind of like a therapy session, I guess. But in hindsight, like, my sister was a reader. She's an introvert. She liked to be alone in her room. And I was kind of an extrovert. So we noticed that I'm 7 years younger than my sister. And when my parents' marriage was getting worse, we noticed that I was a much more physical child and outwardly expressive child. So maybe more of an extrovert. And that I was an angry child, but I was also very sensitive and very sweet. But I got really into karate at one point. So, and I think this is, and I'll get to your question. This all relates to how and why what it was like as a child, as an empath, is that I was trying to find outlets to express this anger, and I was kicking things and kicking people, even though I was a really sweet kid. I had this anger and I was afraid of it. And I've had that my whole life, this anger that's so strong that I've been afraid of it. And, I've really I have worked through it a lot as an adult, as I've become more conscious of it, but seeing it as a kid, what I saw in hindsight was all that energy was just me not being a happy kid, not feeling safe, like being angry that I had to grow up in a home where, there was turmoil and my mom said she remembers like crying in the bathtub, and even as a little kid I would come in and try to cheer her up. So I also learned to be like the comedian and the clown and the performer, and I was really good at that, and I was good at reading the room and knowing, I was very shy, but unless I wanted to perform, and then I was in control and I could make people feel, and especially I got into magic. So being able to trick people and know, like, I knew what was going on, but they didn't. And so it really was a great outlet for me to have all this creative self-expression. And then I played a lot of sports. So that was also a great outlet for my aggression as a kid. And I was even almost too aggressive on the field sometimes, I remember. And I never felt good about it, but I could feel that this needed to come out. So I think, what I learned mostly is just, I think all kids are empaths. We kind of all maybe are. And I was so sensitive, but so many children are, that we're sensory beings. We use our senses to learn and ask questions and be intellectuals. Yes. But to feel, touch, taste, smell, hear things, is so powerful and beautiful. And, as adults, I think we're taught to tune a lot of those things down, but as children, we're so open, so that's, I think if we can tap back into that and know that we are safe, and sort of reprogram those places where it feels unsafe, that's kind of the work, and that's what it's like to be an empathic child, and it was for me, and how I see the work to do it for other children now. Like kids need a place to express themselves. Yes. To be angry, to be all of those things.
Yeah, and it was one woman that showed me a meditation that is more a dynamic meditation, where you use music to get out your emotions, so you can scream and you can roar like a lion, and you can like get all the emotion, that it's dynamic. And I think that is really important to just get also the anger, because like empaths, we are afraid of the darkness inside of us, because we know that how it can hurt someone. So we don't want to hurt anyone with our anger, but then we don't learn that it's our fire. It is what drives us forward in life. It is what makes us a living being. So I know that I'm afraid of my fire still, and I'm getting better and better with it. But it's because it's something that is really angry in a way. It's like, but it's our power that is getting us to do like this podcast.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I'm so glad you said that too. It's really important not to be afraid of our anger or to make it wrong. And I know women need healthier and better spaces. I mean, all people do for expressions of anger. And I know a lot of men, especially after the Me Too movement, of course, we can overcomplicate everything, but men suddenly feel like, quote unquote, like don't feel safe like saying or doing anything or being angry anymore, which is not what the whole point is about. So like on behalf of women and men, there's like men, that's not the point, right? It's everyone should be able to express their anger, but the thing is, I don't think men know how to do that safely unless it's I mean, you can yell and scream, but there's it's the physical element that doesn't feel safe for people, and yet also needs to be expressed sometimes. So there is, physical expressions you can do, and like running and jumping and hitting inanimate objects that won't hurt yourself, right?
Yeah.
Important things to express those things physically so that they don't come out around the people you love. And so I think it's important to find expressions for anger, and like you said, to know that that's good.
Yeah.
I remember there's so many, I used to feel like I was I used to say this, that I was quote unquote attracted to angry women because my mother was angry at men and angry in general. And finally, a friend of my wife's who's a coach, a life coach as well, named Dashel Vodder, she's awesome. And we were talking, and she was like, well, what does that mean? Like an angry woman? Like, and then as we were talking about it, it's like all people experience anger. And could it just be that that's the thing that I hooked into and paid attention to in relationships? Because she asked me, well, like, do you feel like anger is bad or wrong? And I realized that's exactly what I felt, that it wasn't okay. And mostly not that it was bad, but that anger in a relationship, even in an argument, if someone got too mad or got angry too quickly, that it means something's not, that I'm not safe and something's not okay. And so now I'm able to voice that in my relationship sometimes. I don't always respond to it well, but as I'm starting to see that, then you can, make space for it. If you realize that if you don't have space for your partner's anger, that maybe that's something for you to look at, and how can you hold space for them or support them so that they have a safe space for that as well.
That's so important. And that's why communication, and to be clear in the communication, is really important. So you can express that I'm afraid of the emotion when it's so when you are so angry, and then you can talk about it. What is it that you are afraid of? Okay, I'm not feeling safe, and then you can and how can I then do this in a different kind of way so you feel safe? So when we are able to talk about it and to express what we are feeling, not to attack the other person and say that don't be angry, don't be blah blah blah, but go more in and say that I feel afraid when someone is angry.
Yeah, that's a great place to start.
Yeah. So that's it's important to express our emotions, what we feel exactly then, in that moment. So, but it's not easy all the time. It's
a practice.
Yeah.
If we haven't practiced doing it much, if it's maybe a weak muscle, just practice doing it imperfectly. You can even say, I'm not even sure what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
But I know I'm feeling something, and maybe I just need to pause for a minute.
Yes. That's so true. You talk a little bit about that you are an actor, and that you do some music also, and that you have a band. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, in a way, I've been performing my whole life.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I was doing magic since I was a little kid. I met David Copperfield, who's a famous magician from the U.S. Um, and then when I was, I think 13, I started doing magic professionally, like getting paid to do birthday parties and things. But I was remembering one of my earliest memories of my father was him playing guitar for me and singing to me. And he was playing Puff the Magic Dragon, which is a song that was really famous in America in the 70s, I think. It was like a hippie song, but really cool. And so music was around me, and we had a piano in the house, and but my parents, I guess we listened to the radio mostly. We didn't have a lot of records in the house, so they didn't teach me a lot about music, but they had really interesting tastes. Like my parents listened to gospel sometimes, and African gospel and African choirs, and my father had worked in Haiti some, and he was in boys choirs growing up, and so he was really into the boys choirs in England and Vienna and things like that. So I was open to music, and I don't know, it was in me. I loved making music. We had a really good music program in my elementary school that nourished music and voice in children. And actually just spent time with that teacher the other day. It was really beautiful. He really nourished Robert Clark here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He really nourished my voice and so many kids, and said, no one's tone deaf. Everyone can sing, and everyone can play an instrument, and everyone can come together. And it was so healing as a child, and nurturing. And then my father was really believed in going after your dreams. So he and my mom really helped nurture me as an actor, and saw that I was really good at it. And even though I played sports in high school, I loved performing, and I loved the art of theater and telling stories and understanding different people's perspectives. So I followed my dream, and I got into New York University for acting on an acting scholarship. And even before I graduated, I booked a role on a huge national television campaign here for Dell Computers. And I was the face and voice of Dell Computers for 3.5, almost 4 years. And I've done TV shows and independent films and commercials and off-Broadway theater, a lot of different things like that. And living in New York for 20 years. And now I'm sort of traveling the country because, all the professions are changing. And my wife and I I've played music my whole life though. So, my grandfather also played harmonica. So even though he didn't quite understand the blues, the blues came out of me when I started playing harmonica. So, I play harmonica and banjo and guitar, and I'm a singer-songwriter. And my wife has become a really incredible singer and songwriter, like extraordinary, and lead singer of my band, or our band, Dirty May, DIRTYMAE. And so we've put out 2 albums now. The second one's called Holy Mama, and it's just extraordinary musicians from mostly the Northeast United States, trombone, trumpet, fiddle players, upright bass. We have some really cool people. So we just believe in doing what you love. And so I still do that today as an actor and a musician.
Yes. So nice. But it's one thing that you haven't told about, that you are doing yoga also. Can you tell me a little bit about your spiritual practice?
Well, that's all integrated. That's all spirituality for me, doing what you love, helping other people, being of service. And I've also been a yoga teacher for 8 years, and yoga meditation. I've done sound healing, used music for that, taught restorative yoga, all kinds of different yoga. And I got into that in acting school, actually, when I was studying in Holland, in Amsterdam. And we just had some teachers that really helped emphasize getting into our bodies, and I took a lot of dance classes in college. So once I started getting into yoga, it made perfect sense as an athlete, and it really transformed my body and gave me great strength and flexibility that I'd never had. And it was a discipline that helped my creative mind.
Yes.
And I saw how much it helped people, and still does. So I still implement it every day, even if it's just a small stretch I'm doing. You know, so much of it's inside of yoga. I don't teach as much right now, but it's always a part of my life. You know, it's something I think about. And yoga, you know, the physical practice is just one limb of the 8 limbs of yoga. So there's, you know, the breath work and the meditation and the philosophy and all the different principles of non-harm, and there's some really beautiful philosophy that we can practice every day, whether we're on a yoga mat or not. So that's one thing that I loved learning about you too, that you were studying yoga, tantric yoga, I believe, right?
Yeah, now I'm studying
all kinds of things.
tantra, and that is amazing to learn how to use the energy in a whole other way. And also I'm doing yoga as my business now, so
that's great. Congratulations.
Yes, I'm doing chakra yoga coaching, so I'm helping people with yoga to go into their chakras, and then we are talking about what is coming up. So
cool. That's great. I love that.
So,
I can see that you'd be really good at that.
Yeah, thank you. But where can people find you? What is your web site? And
well, thank you for asking. I'm really active on Instagram. So it's Ben Curtis Official. And I'm also, I'm on everywhere. But bencurtis.co is my website, .co. And it's BENCURTIS. But if you look up Ben Curtis Official, you can pretty much find me anywhere. I'm the Ben Curtis.
Yes,
There's a lot of Ben Curtises, but if you're looking for a coach, or you want to just talk about support and what that would look like in your life, it's not therapy. It's definitely an on the court action-based thing that it really just, I listen for people's greatness that's already within them, and continue to reflect that and hold space for the healing that needs to happen so that they can practice that more. And ultimately, you know, that serves me too, because it fills my heart up. And so I just love doing that. And I love holding space, and having conversations with people like you is very healing, just to talk about these things.
Yes.
In hopes that it helps someone else.
I'm sure it will do. And Ben, can you tell me something you want to say to the listeners that is going to listen to this podcast? What is it that you have learned along the way?
Probably the greatest lesson I've learned, that I would impart on you who are listening, is you can read all the books in the world and do all the yoga and the meditation and drink the right kind of smoothies and eat the right kind of foods, but ultimately just consider that you are enough.
Yes, that is a great advice. It's the best.
And there's nothing to fix.
No.
So if we could stop trying to fix ourselves and just kind of love yourself as you are right now, consider all the things that you're hoping will go away if you just accepted a little bit, may actually just take care of themselves. But it really starts with just, I think, that idea that we are enough. And, you know, we think things should look different a lot of the times. And so it's also like, it's just practicing, well, maybe this is just it right now.
Yes.
And can that be okay? And if not, then do something different. And if you can't do something different on your own, then ask for help. That's why we're here.
Yeah, we are here to help each other. Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you so much for taking your time to have this interview with me. I'm so grateful.
It's really been a pleasure. Thank you, Heidi, for having me. It's been a gift.
And to all the listeners, wherever you are in the world, have a beautiful day.